Hi everyone. Now I'm going to discuss about handling login exception handling. So this is very important block. So I'll tell you where we use this finally block. See here, whatever the statements you written in finally block are executed irrespective of rising an exception in the thread. Okay. So here the statements which are written in the finally block. Okay. So finally block are executed irrespective of rising an exception in the try. Okay. So irrespective of rising an exception, the statements which are okay, the statements which are written in the finally block are executed. Okay, so here where to use finally block? Okay, see in real time. Okay, see, so in real time, for suppose let's say database or files. Okay, so I'm going to open. Okay, I'm going to open database or file. Okay, so database or file. Okay, and after opening this database or file, so we are going to perform reading or writing operations, right? So reading or writing operations. Okay. After that, we are going to close what database or file. Okay. Close database or file, right? So here, while opening database or file, so there is no exception. For suppose there is no exception. Okay. But while reading or writing, okay, while reading or writing, okay, so you have some exception. Okay, so you have some exception. So what happened in this case? So here we are going to write an entire logic in what try. Okay, so while opening a file, there is no exception, but while reading or writing a file, there is an exception. So whenever an exception is right, okay, immediately your control come out from the try block and it is going to okay search for the corresponding cache block and it will execute the statements and it won't return back to the what try block. Now what about this closing database or closing file code? What about this? So this won't be executed and you cannot write this closing database or what closing file before. Okay, you should write at the end. Why? Because opening a file and reading or writing data into the file should be happen before closing the file. Right? We are closing the file at last. Okay. So now here, okay. So here you are getting an exception. Okay. So after opening a file, okay, after opening a file, okay, while reading or writing. Okay, while reading or writing, okay, on a file or database. Okay, now your control will come out from the try block and it is going to execute corresponding catch and it never return back to the try block. Okay, so now here what about this closing of database or closing of the file? Okay, so in this case, what you need to do is you need to okay write whatever the closing okay database or file logic you should put in the finally block. You should put in the finally block. Now finally block is executed irrespective of rising an exception in that right block. For suppose here you open database and while reading writing there is no exception. For suppose okay, if there is no exception it will continue the what execution process in the try block, right? So it will close the database or file, okay, and it will neglect the catch block. Now, for suppose you are opening a file, okay, so you are opening a file and you are what performing reading or writing operation on the what file or database. Now you got exception, so immediately your control will come out from the catch block and it will execute the statements, and it never return back to the try block. Now these closing code cannot be executed. Now put this closing database or closing file code in the finally block. Now execute the program. For suppose here you are opening the file. Okay, so there is no closing database or closing file. Okay, code here. Okay, just you have written opening database and reading or writing. Okay, operation on the database or file. Now, while performing reading or writing operation on the file or database, there is no exception. For suppose there is no exception. Now, by neglecting the catch block, it will come into the finally block and it will execute it. Okay, in this case, there is no exception, even though it will execute finally block. For suppose there is a case here, you opened a file. Okay, after opening a file, you are performing reading or writing operation. Here exception is occurred. Immediately it will come out from the try block and it will execute corresponding catch block. After execution of corresponding catch block, again it will come to the finally block, and it will execute the closing database logic or closing file logic. Okay, so here, okay, whether exception is raised or not doesn't matter. If exception is raised, it will come to corresponding catch block. After that, it will come to the finally block. If there is no exception, then it will neglect the catch block. Okay, then come to the finally block. So that is the idea of the finally block. Now let me explain by using concrete example. Okay, yeah. So see here try block. Okay, so in this try block, what I want to do is see here. So this is the example which I have discussed earlier. Okay, yeah. Now see here, what I'm doing is sysout. Okay, sysout. This is the message which I want to print. Okay. This is okay. This is mandatory. For suppose this is the thing I want to display. So program execution. Okay. Program execution finished. I'm writing here. Okay, I'm writing here. Okay. Yeah. Now see here. This is the statement I want to print every time. Okay, every time. Yeah. See. Is waiting for 10 and 5. Okay, so now see here it is giving 2 and program execution finished, right? So now what I'm doing is now 10 0. See here, please do not enter b value as 0. Okay, but it is not executing program execution finished. Why? Because here okay, here exception is raised here, arithmetic exception. Why? Because b value as you given 0, and it is come out from the try block and executed corresponding catch block and never return back to the this try block, and these two are ignored. Okay, yeah. Now for suppose now I'm using this statement, okay, here outside of catch block. Okay, outside of catch block. Yeah, now see what happened outside of catch block. 10 0. See, program execution finished. Right, now it is executed whenever exception is raised, and again I'm going to execute this program 10 5. Okay, see it is printing 2 and execution is finished. Okay, then why this finally block is needed in this case? Okay, here whether exception is raised or not doesn't matter, but this is this statement is executed after writing this statement after try catch. But why? What is the significance of finally block? Now I will tell you. Okay. See here, for suppose here what you are handling this arithmetic exception. So you can't say that only the exception is raised in the try block is what arithmetic exception. There may be a case other than okay arithmetic exception also. Okay, there is another exception may occur apart from this arithmetic exception. In that case, what happens? See, for suppose here I given 10.0. Actually, it is expecting integer value, but you given double value. See now in this case, what happened? See, here you given 10.0. Okay, 10.0. See, now this statement is not executed. Why so? Why? Because here exception is not handled. Okay. Why? Because the exception which is raised is what? Input mismatch exception. But here you have arithmetic exception. Right. So in this case, okay, this what? Statement will not be executed. Okay, the statement will not be executed. So now what I will do is I will put okay finally. Okay. Now see the magic of power of what finally block. See, there are three cases. First, 10, 5. So you given okay input values correct. See program execution finished. And second one, okay, second one here what I'm doing is I'm giving 10, 0 means the exception you are handled. Okay, the exception you are handled. Okay, I'm giving the input which is related to the exception which you are handled. See here 10, 0. See, please do not enter b value as 0. Okay, please do not enter b value as 0. See, this is executed and finally block also executed. Right now, third one. Okay, third one. Here now you are giving 10.0 means here the exception which you have not handled. In this case, see, enter. Enter. See, program execution finished. See, here exception is raised, okay, which is not handled. So in this case also finally block is executed. In previous case, if you write this what a statement, okay, without using finally block, okay, without using finally block, then you are not able to see this, you are not able to execute this statement without finally block. Whenever you give what this 10.0. Okay, if you want, you can go back to the video. You can backward this video, then you can see. So whenever I give 10.0, then just this input mismatch exception is occurred without printing this statement. Now this statement is printed. Okay, so here whether you give okay correct input values, okay, whether you given correct input values or not doesn't matter. Whether you handle the exception is okay or doesn't matter. Okay, whether you handle the exception is doesn't matter. Okay, in these three cases, okay, this finally block is executed. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Okay, so finally block, okay, the statements which you have written in the finally block are executed irrespective of raising an exception in the try block and irrespective of handle the exception. Okay, irrespective of handle the exception and irrespective of raising the exception in the try. Okay, so this is the what main significance of the finally block. Okay, yeah, thanks everyone.